Kassi, welcome to the show.
Justin, I'm so excited to be here today. Thank you for the invitation.
Of course, we obviously a mutual friend connected us, and I got to know your story, and I was like, I would love to have you on the podcast. I love what you're doing for businesses, for individuals to really unlock their creativity. Because I think, creativity is one of those things, and I told you this when we first connected. I was like, I didn't think I was creative. Right. Like I
Yeah.
didn't think that I was until I had a friend who also talks on creativity. And I was like, oh, wait, maybe I am creative. And I think that's such a common thing for people to think. Like, how common is it that people are like, I'm not creative? I'm just not a creative person.
It's very common, Justin. I feel like if people aren't in the world of education, music, musician, or an artist, then they just kind of automatically just call themselves not creative. And it's hard to go anywhere if you have that mindset.
Yeah, it certainly is, and I think, obviously defining creativity is something because I think we're told our lives, oh, that person's creative, they're an artist, that person's creative, they're a musician, they're whatever. You never think like, oh, I'm a podcaster, I'm creative, or I create social media reels, I'm creative, like all these things. It's such an interesting factor. But I want to go back a little bit because obviously this isn't the subject that you were the expert on your whole entire life, and we're going to get into the journey. Where did you start, and why is creativity such an important topic for you to cover?
It is. So I started in probably a place that no one would ever think. And I was a preschool administrator right out of the gate, right after I graduated college with my business degree. And it was the family business. I never intended to work there, because I thought like I had to be a preschool teacher, which I love kids. It's nothing about that. But, it just takes a certain type of person to be in the classroom, especially with like littles and they're screaming and their fits and all the things, right? Like
I
it's a
couldn't do it.
super yeah. We've had parents before. I've heard parents like dropping off their kid. I gotta get out of there. I'm like, you were only in there like dropping off your kid. Like this is what we do it every day. No, but it is. I knew I wasn't cut out to be in the classroom full time. Like you can love kids, but like that's just a certain kind of calling. And and so my mom actually, a few years before I graduated, she was like, "Have you ever thought about coming on board more like as like the business manager?" And I was like, "No, actually, I didn't think that was an option." So our school had like a different kind of structure. So if you know anything about the preschool world, the directors are essentially like the business managers. They're the ones in the office. They're the ones like you go to with any problem, kind of like the CEO in like that world.
Sure.
Well, my sister was a director, but she was a full-time teacher and loved being in the classroom. She hated all the like the office stuff, the administrative stuff. That's the part that I liked. So it created this unique dynamic that typically doesn't exist. So about a year in, I loved my job, and I describe it as I was the CPO. It was my official title, and no, not the chief people officer people think today. I was the chief problem officer. So
Mm,
not only did I do, the administrative stuff I needed to do, but whether a kid got their knee scraped and the teachers buzzed me to like medic them, whether a teacher called out, I was subbing in the classroom, or if a parent got disgruntled about something, usually I would be the first point of contact. So
oh,
I dealt with lots of different things, and I loved it. But about a year in, and maybe hopefully this can be like really relatable to the audience, is like, have you ever been in a part of your job, like, or in your journey, your career journey, to where you love what you do, you believe in it, but somehow that kind of initial spark just kind of has started to diminish a little bit. Like the flame's still there, it's still on, like a candle, but it's just kind of like gone down.
yeah. I think
And
that's super common. Like, and to speak to that really quick, I think that's why you see people now that are in corporate. They change not careers but companies every 3 to 5 years now, and it is probably that whole idea.
just keeping it fresh, right? Is like you like kind of what you do, the type of work you do, but it's just that fresh wind.
Yeah.
And so I started feeling that about a year in, right? Justin, it's like most people, like you said, it's a couple of years in, but it's like about a year, and I'm like, I need a little something. I need a little something more. And so I started looking around and I realized that I just had grown this passion for children's books. They were on all the classrooms. And right, like Justin, what's like your favorite children's book? What's something that
Oh my
pops to mind?
gosh.
Do you have one?
I I I don't like I so it's I don't know if it's a children's book, but it's like Where the Sidewalk Ends was like one of my favorites. But this is not
Yeah,
like that's not like super little kid. Like you're thinking
a little
like
older.
yeah, like green eggs and ham, stuff like that. I
Kinda,
don't know.
yeah.
Yeah.
But no, you're still in the right road. That's a yeah, a classic in and of itself. So yeah, like children's books and they're, creative and they're fun and they're just not bound by like all the constraints of like real world life that we have now. And I started tinkering this idea that my sister had of pairing children's books with experiences. She was already kind of doing this. And so I took that on as my own. And some of my earliest inspirations, Justin, you've probably seen it, is the Very Hungry Caterpillar themed 1-year-old birthday party,
Yeah,
right?
I let me tell you, like that book, I don't remember it from my childhood, but it's apparently so apparent to so many people.
It is legend. And like internationally too. Like I work and we might talk about this later, like work with teachers around the world and it is literally translated and is just a classic. Like I don't
Wild.
think you can get any more classic than the Hungry Caterpillar, right? This Hungry Caterpillar eating all this like random food, becomes a butterfly. It's like such a simple life cycle story, but I mean, most people, if you like, hey, have you heard of this book? They're like, oh yeah. But anyway, so that was if you get on Pinterest or whatever, it's very popular to have those kind of like children's themed birthday parties, like book themed. And I was like, what if I could take that concept and just twist it a little bit to something educational?
Mm,
And so I played around with the idea for a year, right? I just explored the possibilities. And I found that I'm like, I have authority in the events of the school. We do a different activity a special activity for the kids every Friday to kind of keep things fresh and new for them. And it kind of hit me because, right, sometimes we get in our jobs and we have to do our daily jobs. It's like, where can I be creative? I don't have time to be creative. Like, where in all this? And so I found like a little niche. And so I'm like, okay, like I called them book days because they were a day based around a children's book. So we do a dynamic reading and then a variety of themed activities. So if it was like a book about a farm or the ocean or whatever it was, those are the kinds of activities. And so the idea took a lot of different forms. It was like you get in the kitchen and you get all the ingredients out and you just kind of start mixing and doing all the things. Well,
yeah.
that was me. Like the teachers sometimes would read the book and then like I would read the book with the whole school. One time, Justin, I actually got in, I think, a cow costume and acted out the book Click Clack Moo. I do not
Wait,
prefer
I
that,
need to
the
see.
acting of
We need to
it.
find that video. I know it's on video somewhere.
This is the level of dedication. Um, so yeah, I just had fun with it. It's just a lot of creative ideas. And September of 2018 was when everything kind of shifted. And my sister found this costume company, like mascot costumes, right? That they had a wing of book characters, like mascot costumes that look like these characters walked out of the book. So
Wow.
for any of our listeners to know, like books like Pete the Cat and His Four Groovy Buttons or The Rainbow Fish by Marcus Fischel, some of the other classics out there, it literally looks like you open the book and they just like walked out. And they're like, why don't we bring in Pete the Cat? And I'm like, yeah, great idea. Like, something new. And it was September, so the launch of a new school year. And ever since then, we started doing one a month. And it was about, I think in January when I looked back and I was like, I think I've really stumbled onto something.
Mm,
And that was an understatement, Justin.
yeah. It was really the start of something really, really big for you. Let's talk about that shift a little bit right now, stepping into that journey of entrepreneurship, which happened accidentally for you, which is wild. Talk a little bit about how you transitioned and started to build this business around this idea.
I did. So, there's two separate wings, so it's kind of fun. So the program actually went full time 3 years ago. Not even 3 years ago. September will be 3 years. So my mom decided to retire and close the school, which my sister and I were very supportive of. And yeah, I was trying to figure out what I was going to do with my life. And 3 months later, actually to the day that we closed the school, I had somebody approach me with a huge check. And they were just like, I really believe in what you're doing. They've been following the program. It wasn't just random.
Just some random
It's
person
just
on the
like,
street.
yeah, just like on the street, like, hand me a check. That would have been awesome. That would be
Yeah,
really
right. Thank you.
cool. And she's like, it essentially launched the program full time. And since then, through the gracious also partnerships with United Way and the Kendra Scott Foundation, we have created this proof of concept of touring Title I schools in an effort to combat illiteracy. We have done 5 different school districts, 70 Title I schools, over 22,000 kids here in Central Texas, and we're on trajectory to launch a national tour combating
Wow.
illiteracy around America. And so that's the trajectory it went. Like the just the tinkering of ideas, exploring the possibilities, and through, grit, a lot of prayer, Justin, and God's favor, it has grown into an international program. And not only here, things here in America, but I also mentor educators around the world, everywhere from Philippines to South Africa to
Wow.
Nicaragua and Alaska, how to bring books to life in their classrooms so that the ripple effect can go out even farther.
No, I love that. Let's talk about the illiteracy problem a little bit.
Mhm.
I think if you're not in it, you don't realize how serious the issue is, right?
Mhm.
Like especially in America, where we just assume that people know how to read. What are the numbers currently of people who are illiterate in this country?
Well, I do know that I'm not sure of like the specific like metric, but I do know as a country as a whole, America is the leading country in the world. Like we lead the statistics on illiteracy.
Wow, that's
I mean,
incredible. Like
it's
you
mind blowing.
would you would think opposite, right? Like you would think assume. Well, I mean, obviously, I think there's a ton of other issues when it comes to the education system and all that stuff, and how we're testing lower and lower every year. Um, so when you go to combat this, is it about you meeting it head on for when the kids are young, and then hopefully being able to expand upon it? Like, what's that look like?
Exactly. Yes. So just to put it in perspective, the Texas guidelines, pre-K guidelines, they state that literally people think of like learning to read. Okay, yeah, we just need to like ABCs, one, two, threes, like get them reading. But really, it even states that the beginning of the reading journey is creating that love of reading. And so that is where we hone in on. Like that is our specialty. There's so many great literacy organizations out there doing, one-on-one reading or all the different things, right? Our specialty is coming in and igniting that love of reading because all kids can learn how to read, but it's like having a tool belt and then not like wanting to build anything with it. Like it's not gonna go anywhere. So having both the love of reading and the skills of reading is what will propel them to reach their full potential. And so making experiences exciting for them, bringing in these characters that they already know and love. It's kind of like the Disney World of education, right? And like
Yeah.
we all pretty much know that, like, well, yes, we all know that those, Mickey Mouse or whatever, walking around the park, they're not real, but it just ignites something fun and memorable, right? It's giving them a core memory that they'll be able to take with them the rest of their lives.
Yeah, I think it's absolutely genius. I kind of wish people did this when I was a kid. I don't love reading. I kind of force myself to read, but I can only, here's a fun fact. I can only read nonfiction. Like people who get into these Harry Potter books and they like somehow step into this world of whatever. When I read those books, it's just my voice reading the words. Like
Yeah.
I can't even picture like any of the things. And I don't know, I've seen things. It's like ADD people would do that, like where it's just their voice reading the words and all the things and whatever. If you're able to approach that head on very early on and open up the world to these kids, like hopefully that continues and they are able to pick up that Harry Potter book and go into the whatever land he lives in, right? So like I have never seen the movies and I've never read the book, so I don't really know. Yeah.
I've heard of it like you.
I love it. I love it. So let's talk about the shift a little bit into the corporate space and how that came about because I think it's fascinating that you had this light bulb moment of like, oh, hold on. I'm not just talking about illiteracy and getting kids excited to read. I'm talking about creativity and the importance of that. Like how did you make that shift?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it was just kind of very organic, and I wouldn't just say that light bulb came on like, oh, I'm doing this and this makes perfect sense, right? It was kind of an evolution of I enjoyed speaking, and about 2 years ago the light bulb came on. I felt it was kind of funny because I had launched the program full time. We had started our initial tours, like everything was going really well, and I just felt in this moment of I don't feel like I'm growing. Like everything's just kind of on autopilot. I know how to do stuff. Like I need to challenge myself in some way. And I had been speaking at different education conferences, but more like how to create a book day in your classroom. And, the corporate world doesn't connect really with anybody except educators. And so I started thinking, I'm like, I think my story has a lot more to offer than just like how to do the program, right? And so it was just kind of one step at a time until I realized that creativity is one of the most sought after business assets in our world today. And the Harvard Business Review, different publications have written recently on that, like CEOs is one of the top skills that they're looking for, but is so underdeveloped. And so that's where I come in. I realized that I had kind of unearthed this framework, if you will. I call it the EDGE framework. How, like, what creativity is, why it's important, and how people can tangibly use it in their workplaces to not only bring themselves like fresh air in their jobs, but for more alignment, more innovation, and greater impact.
I love it. So what would you say to somebody who, say you go into the corporate office and somebody sits in front of you and they go, I'm not creative. How do you allow them to, because you have to figure it out yourself, right? Like somebody
Oh
can't be
yeah,
like, you're creative, take these two
yes,
things and make something. You have to kind
it's
of
true.
unlock it yourself. But what can you say to those people or have them do in order to unlock that creativity?
I honestly, Justin, and like you said, I love you said it so well. You can't tell somebody that, right? I can't just go in and be like, you're creative, which I do a little bit. I do a little bit, but it's in a different way. Like it's through the whole journey, right? Like we start
Yeah.
unpacking it. You have to like, what is even creativity? Because people get A, they think they're not creative, and B, it seems like this weird intangible thing that is just too out there to even try to unravel, right? And so I find with clarity on what it is, why it's important, and how we can use it in the workplace, people come to that conclusion on their own. And I have even witnessed that somebody was on one of my workshops, I believe in tech actually.
Wow.
And he's like, even he mentioned something in the beginning, kind of in a comment that I don't believe I'm creative. And then all the way after, he's like, wow, like you've really changed my mind. Like I can see the different ways that I'm creative now without necessarily being like some big work project or this, like the big things we think about, like you mentioned in the beginning. It's, oh, I'm creating content. Even the simple things, we don't even think of communication as being creative. It's just like, it's happening. We have to do it. But I'm like, how are you creatively crafting this talk over with the coworker, things went south here, this or that. Kind of like how are you creatively navigating that? And that's creativity in and of itself too. It doesn't always have to be a product. So I would say I love using this statistic. If I tell them, I do say, talk about you are creative in just a snippet, but then we kind of go through the whole process. I love the statistics that NASA did, a study, and I don't know if you've heard of this study that they did.
I
In
haven't.
the 1960s, they pulled, I think it was 1,500 children's between 3 and 5 years old, and it was a longitudinal study. So they did tested the kids when they're young at 10, 15, and then as adults. NASA found that all these kids, 98% of them, so practically everyone, um, were creative geniuses.
Wow.
Yeah. And then at 10 years old, that statistic went down to 15%.
By
10%.
10?
Yeah.
Oh my
It was startling.
gosh.
Oh, I got my, oh no, 30%. Trying
That's
to keep all
still
the percents and the numbers right.
That's
Yeah.
crazy from 95% to 30% in
Yeah.
those however many years, 5, 6 years. That's crazy.
By the time they were 15, it went down to 15%. And by the time they were adults, only 2% of them tested in that creative genius bracket. So it just goes to show you that we have it all in us. We just have to like reignite that. And that's why I said we have to get back to the edge of creativity.
Yeah, it's so fascinating because I'm thinking, about my journey a little bit when it comes to what creativity is and how I didn't think I was creative. Um, but I had this podcast. I was hosting live events. Like I was doing all these things, right? And I look at the live events as experiences. So what experience am I creating for people? Which is create. It's literally in the how I was talking about it. But what I really realized is, I'd say over the last 6 years or so, um, I've I've really kind of allowed myself to have more fun day to day, right? Like I'm a huge Disney person. Like I love Disney World. Now I'm not the one who has like the t-shirts and I don't wear the ears and I don't do that type of thing, but I
I
love
was gonna
going.
say,
I love going to Disney World and I also love Legos. And so I've allowed myself to kind of play. And I think what that does is it unlocks that creativity because that's what's missing, right? Like when you're a kid, you're constantly in your own fantasy world and you're playing and you're doing all those things. And now by 10, if they did that study now, I'd be interested because once the kid gets a device, the creativity starts
uh,
to go down quicker, right? Like there's no more
yes.
imagining what you're doing, right? It's just right in front of your face. But
Mhm.
like, do you encourage like when you go to these offices for people to play, like to get back into that childhood mentality? Is that really like a hack?
Yeah, absolutely. And there's studies that have shown that when things are fun, they're more memorable. And so one of the things I like to do when I go into organizations, I like to take what I call the wheel of creativity. And so this is how I put fun in it, right? And you can get fun and hands-on when it's like more workshop style instead of keynote. But so it's literally just like carnival wheel, Justin, like a kind you spin for prizes.
Yeah.
And to switch it up and make it interesting, right? Because we do breakout sessions that, most people do. But I use different things. So whether it's like nonprofit space and they want to focus on like fundraising ideas, or I'm in corporate like healthcare and they're looking for, engage, or they were looking for defining their leadership role. Like that was their niche they were looking for. So, and we, do a lot of different things on engagement and all the other things. So I like to put constraints. Have you ever seen Guys Grocery Games on the Food Network?
I've never watched it, but I've seen commercials for it.
So it's this crazy, like they have to do all this cooking stuff, but then he puts all this like random stuff that either they pull or anyway, like you have to watch
Yeah.
it, but it kind of was got my mind to being creative. And so I'll put like for fundraising, you get an extra like $100 to your budget, or you only have so much to work with, or you have to include a celebrity in your idea, like just different things to make it fun. And the CEO even came up and like spun the wheel, and like people were laughing and all the things. So it gets people just kind of out of their typical, we're going to sit here and listen to a lecture, and now we are going to brainstorm ideas, and now you will implement these ideas. Like it just gets the laughter flow. And I feel like if you can get the laughter, people can kind of settle in a little bit and really connect with just that fun element. Because
Yeah.
work can be fun, and it
Yeah.
should be.
It should be. I mean, I'm glad these companies bring you in and maybe you show the CEO it's okay to have a little bit of fun because I'm unemployable, right? Like I was in the corporate world and I did the whole thing and I was miserable the whole time. And so obviously being a full-time entrepreneur now for like 7 or 8 years, this is where I belong, right? I can't report to that boss who doesn't view things the same way I do. And it's just, obviously a freedom thing, but I feel like what you do is you bring synergy back into the workplace for people, I imagine, right? Not only productivity, but synergy. Like, hey, we're a team, we're all together. Especially when you have those moments of fun, it totally changes the game. So, talk a little bit about your edge method. I'd love to hear how you kind of work through that with people.
Yeah, absolutely. So I like the acronym EDGE, right? Because it's easy to remember. And so E stands for explore the possibilities. So it's just no idea is a bad idea. We need to unpack all the ideas, right? It's not time to kind of like nitpick. Because then that's where you get analysis paralysis and you're like,
Yeah.
oh, there's only one good idea. We can only go with that one. And it's not that great of an idea. And so D is drive with grit and perseverance, because once you have an idea, as you know, like it's if you don't do anything with it, it's not going to go anywhere. So you have that grit because there will be rejection along the way.
Mm.
but you have to overcome that. And then G is ground in rest and reflection. And then we're back to E, which is evaluate. And so it's just kind of this cycle, I call it. And I used to call it the cycle of creativity. And then when I narrowed it down for a keynote recently, I'm just like, Edge, like I can fit all this in the acronym Edge. That'll be a lot easier for people.
No, I love it. I love it. And obviously you've written a book too. Talk a little bit about like who's the book for, right? Like you've talked about the students, you've talked about the corporate people. Who's the book for and why should they go grab it?
It is for individuals who want a breath of fresh air and want to make a greater impact in their world. You're already doing a great impact. You're already making a great impact, but those who just want to go deeper. And so it's my story on a very like more personal level, I guess. You know, in a book, you can put all those fun details in there that you can't really share in a workshop or keynote. But yeah, and it breaks down my story in a way that's actionable, bites for people in their journey as well. So it walks through that cycle. But yeah, I hope that that is even more inspiring too, because we can only get snapshots of people's lives in, you know, when we're out in public and on stages and speaking all the things. But I hope like all the little details will be even more inspiring and help you in your journey.
Yeah, I love it. And so I want to ask you a question that I asked every single person on the show. It's a two-part question. So the first part of the question is, what is your definition of success? And the second piece is, what are three things you do every single day to ensure that success for yourself?
I believe success. That is a great question, Justin. You didn't prep me for this one. No, that's a really profound question. I believe success is to glorify God and to make people's lives better. And when I
Mm,
mean better, it's, I want to say that in a way, not just in, we think of impact as I'm on these, you know, stages of so many people or these workshops or all this stuff. But success can be as little as you brighten someone's day by remembering them and texting them. You brighten someone's day by sending them a letter of encouragement, not like as a business thing or whatever. But success can be so little and impact can be so little. And so that's one of the things of like the edge of creativity, it's to make greater impact. And those impacts can be small, but they can be profound. So you don't have to create a global program like I did because your impact impacts your world.
mm.
And what I'm doing every day for that is getting up early, praying, reading the Bible, and just going out. And like I said, we're on trajectory to launch the national tour and to continue making an impact in the organizations that reach out, that I have the opportunity to speak at. And yeah, that's it, Justin. Just the opportunities that come along life's path. I don't think any of us can really anticipate what happens in life. We can try to, you know, reach out and do different things, but just taking all the opportunities that come day by day and just taking life that way.
I love it. I love it. So I wrap up every single interview with the same question, but before we get there, let's get to the good stuff. Where can they get your book? Where can they hire you? What's all the good information?
The two ways, the easiest ways, either LinkedIn is I'm on LinkedIn all the time, so Kassi Kincaid, or my website has all the things, book, keynote, workshop, all the goodies, KassiKincaid.com. So those are the two places you can reach me.
Awesome. Keeping it simple. I love it. So, like I said, I wrap up the interview every single time the same way. And the question is, in your life, what has been your biggest moment of growth?
Mm. I could go this two different ways. And one I'm living out actually right now with this national tour. Um, but I might share the one previously because that one's kind of like in the works right now. But the previous one was when I was in that in between period of my working for the family business to launching book days. I had no idea what was going to happen in between then. And I applied to work in my alma mater and I did not get it.
Mm,
And as just kind of a groundwork, I was kind of the poster child for my alma mater. Like the president was a mentor of mine. I I had helped craft the President Society for like the alumni. So it was like a no-brainer. I was moving in my mind and I did not get it.
mm.
And I was crushed. Crushed. Like this was already a really big growth season for me, lots of faith, and I was crushed. And it's in those moments to where you just think like I thought I had something to offer. Like I thought I had skills. I thought like all this stuff. And I had no idea that a few months later I would literally be receiving my dream of
Mm.
launching the program. And at the time I had no idea where it would even go, that it would even get to this big. And I believe I haven't even seen like the magnitude of it yet. So I would say that was one of the most defining points of my recent life, that just was so profound, so crushing, so humbling. But I believe it was necessary to get to the point to where I am today. So anybody that has received rejection, you didn't get that job, you didn't get that promotion, life hasn't gone the way you want, just keep having faith and it will produce a harvest in the end. I promise you.
I love it. There's a meme out there that I was thinking about as you were telling that story, and it says like God, and God is saying, "Nah, bigger." Right? Like, oh, this was my dream, but God said, no, there's more, right? And I think that there's this great lesson for people to hear all the time, right? Because a lot of times when we feel like we get knocked down or the dreams that we had, they're not happening, we really beat ourselves up, right? Instead of going, oh well, why is this happening for me versus
Yes.
to me, right? Like that's the mindset that you need in order to move forward. So thank God that you didn't get that job because now you're making a massive impact that we don't even know the limits of it yet. I'm excited to have you back on the show 2 years from now to talk about where it's gone, right? And to see the shifts and the things that you've done next. But Cassie, thank you so much for coming on and sharing your journey with my audience.
Justin, thank you so much. This has been such a priceless time with you, and thanks for all your insights as well on creativity.